This episode of Two Guys on Mobile is brought to you by Pontiflex App Leads. Go to www.appleads.com. It's time for Two Guys on Mobile. Figure if I make it sound macho, it'll sound macho, right? My name is Rob Woodbridge from Untether.tv, and this is episode number 20, recorded live between Jeff and I, anyways, on June 26th, 2011. I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeff Bacon.
Hey, everybody.
Also known as the Suave Hog, found at bacononthego.com, and the purveyor of all things mobile at Ascension Cross Media /Bithead / whatever you want to, what else you want to call them. Based out of here in Ottawa, Canada. And we are now 2 decades, well, 20 episodes old, which is pretty impressive. I think that this is not so bad on a weekly show. We've got a ways to go before we break any kind of records, but 20 episodes. Congratulations, Jeff. Really appreciate the time and effort it's taken to get to this point.
Next week we'll be able to gamble in Vegas.
Yes, or drink in the States. And we should. We should do this live down somewhere. Yeah, everybody takes a gamble listening to us every week, so we should all meet somewhere, I figure. We should do the Two Guys on Mobile meetup. It might sound dirty, but it really wouldn't be. Well, 3 stories that we want to cover this week. Driven by news in a mobile space in the past week. That's what we do. We recap, but we give a little bit more insight, sometimes ad nauseum. Sometimes we go too deep, but that's the beauty of this. You can fast forward, or as Jeff aptly pointed out on his blog at the Suave Hog, or at Bacon on the Go, is that you can actually listen to this in audio in double speed and get through this in half the time. We just won't talk as fast. So if we talk like this, it'll work. So that's an expert tip from an expert podcaster. We're going to dive into this. We're going to talk about the killer app for the phones. We're also going to talk about audio recognition software having its day, and we're going to come back to this NFC thing because it seems like it's NFC everywhere. At least the concepts are, and we've got our each got our own opinion about this. But we're going to dive right into it. I think the biggest story this week was maybe it wasn't this week, but the significance of the story is that the killer app on your phone is that silly little thing in the back that takes pictures, the camera. And a couple of announcements this week really highlighted this. And I've always thought that the killer app was voice because nobody uses it anymore, and it's going to come back. It's going to be resurgence. But the amount of stuff that can be done with a camera, staggering. And that's what we're going to talk about for the first little section here. One of the biggest, what was the thing that sparked you on this, Jeff? What was the biggest announcement this week?
I think it wasn't that there was a single biggest announcement this week. I think it was just the fact that there's so many small announcements about it, and so many, especially over the last 6 months even, so many small things going on that leverage the phone's camera now that just weren't happening before, either because people hadn't had time to come up with them, or the devices weren't powerful enough to process the camera images fast enough, or we just weren't ready to accept cameras in the context of using them in our everyday lives versus taking snapshots of people drinking at bars and posting them on Facebook.
It's true. I mean, one of the big things that came out over the last couple of weeks was that, and I think this was maybe 3 or 4 weeks old, that really cemented the impact that that iOS or the iPhone has had, is the fact that Flickr, the number one camera listed on Flickr, is the iPhone. So gone are the days where you had to take out your SD card and put it into your laptop and then upload, batch upload your files. Is that now all of a sudden the iPhone is the number one camera uploading to Flickr. Now I don't use Flickr anymore, but I'm pretty sure you would see the same statistics at Facebook and at every
higher.
other.
It's probably even higher at Facebook, because it makes it so much easier to one-click upload to Facebook, and it's not easy to one-click upload your digital camera photos. I guess you could say the same thing about Flickr, but I see a lot of people on Facebook who have mobile upload albums that are just full of stuff because they just click it, boom, mobile upload it.
Yep, it's very easy to share. And even companies like Instagram, who post to Flickr, post to post to any of the sharing sites, they have a growing, probably younger base of users that are using Instagram, of over 3 million people. And my guess is that obviously all 3 million of those are influencing this because it's a it's an iOS app, and this is a pretty significant play because these cameras are much, and that's just on the photo side. What we're talking about here is beyond photos. So the impact is here. More people are sending photos to these sharing services from an iPhone than any other device. That's all other devices. And I've read some reports that even say that, listen, combined, all the other devices don't compare to what Apple's doing with the iPhone camera. But that's only the beginning, right? We're starting to see some innovative uses, as you said, about the camera use in everyday life, right?
Yeah, I thought the Card.io announcement this week was particularly interesting. And Card.io announced a service where you can take a picture of your credit card, and it will scan the picture and determine what the credit card digits are right off of the picture of the credit card. And you flip it over, and it'll figure out the last 3 digits that are on the back of every credit card that aren't embossed into it, and it'll pre-fill those in a form on your device for you. So you can integrate into any mobile application the ability to charge with a credit card by having them take a picture, not having to type in the actual credit card information, not having to save that in a wallet and log into your wallet and go through. It's as simple as every time you want to use it, you just hold your camera up, click, take a picture of the card, turn it over, click, take another one, and boom, you can pay by credit card. And I think it's really interesting, partly because it integrates really, really well into daily lives of people, and that it streamlines a purchase process. But I think what it also does is kind of cross one of those barriers that people have about, taking pictures of things and what's the significance of a picture of something in my life, something personal. People consider credit cards personal. And I'm not saying that Card.io is suddenly going to have 50 million users next week, but I think that it's showing that there is an appetite now for a little bit more acceptance of taking pictures of personal information and leveraging them in the context that helps you, versus the overall fear of, oh, where's this picture going to end up, right? Like, 3 or 4 years ago, if this had come out, people would have said, oh my God, you're going to take a picture of my credit card? It's going to go online. Now everybody can see a picture of my credit card. And of course, just like when there's still people who don't want to use their credit card on the internet, like some family members of mine that still refuse to do that. But it's become much more commonplace because people are starting to realize, A, it's more convenient, and B, there isn't stories of credit card numbers getting exposed every single day out there, because the reality is it's ridiculously difficult to steal a credit card number online. So much so that it's not impossible, but it's so close for most people that it's impossible. Whereas when you use your credit card in any other context, it's so easy to steal a credit card number that Joe Blow, 6-year-old, can steal your credit card if you hand it to them.
Well, yeah, Card.io is a really interesting piece. Is there a business model there? I'm not sure. Is it a facilitation? I'm not sure. But it just goes to show you that there's a real clear indication, that this camera can be used for other things. And I think that this really started from the adoption, or the semi-adoption, certainly in Asia, the adoption of QR codes, which was, and barcode scanning. Obviously, this was the first thing that was brought over to the camera on these devices. And we, I've seen some pretty poor examples of QR code implementation, but people are starting to do it. When my mother asks, in our local newspaper, what that little box is and how do I get information to it, that's starting to have an impact. She's starting to look at her camera, her iPhone, differently because of the camera. And certainly the extension from QR codes into this next wave of augmented reality with the cameras, I think is going to be even bigger. And by augmented reality, I'm not talking about what we're seeing today. The map overlays, or you hold it up and you see like cartoon pictures, or something like that. I'm talking about you drive down the street, like you just bought a house. You're trying to sell this house. If I'm looking to buy, why can't I just take my camera and my iPhone or Android device or BlackBerry, use an augmented reality app, put it up in front of the house, see the total square footage, the cost, the room size, how much it costs, can I get cable, high speed, that kind of stuff. That's powerful, and it's a window literally from the camera. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, and augmented reality it starts off as tech demos, just like much of technology development does. It starts off with showing, how can we do it? What's the easiest thing for computers to recognize so we can show that the basics are there? And that's why it started off with basic things like having a checkerboard down and having 3D models on top of the checkerboard, because it was showing that you could use a video, you could process what's in the video enough to identify certain points and map those to a computer program. And that's what augmented reality does, is it identifies the picture and points within it to map it to some portion of your computer program. Now, something like Google Maps with its Street View, if you hold your camera up in front of you with Street View on, you're basically getting a VR picture of where you are. It's just not real time. And the next switch to do it real time. And it takes that extra level of processing to process video or pictures that way. And it's really interesting to see, like, the applications that you mentioned there, Rob, are right now using mostly geolocation, not really picture analysis as much. It's like, where are you looking? Therefore, I know what you're looking at, rather than saying, okay, here's a picture, I have no idea where you are, but from this picture, I'm going to pick out defined points. And QR codes and Microsoft Tag and all those things are interesting because it's really a bridge technology.
It is.
It's there because right now, you can't take a picture of the Eiffel, okay, the Eiffel Tower is a bad example, because you probably could, but take a picture of the Eiffel Tower, process it to know that it's the Eiffel Tower, or take a picture of a Coke can and process it to know it's a Coke can. You need the QR codes. You need those easy to recognize digital signals, because we just don't have the power on our mobile devices to process the picture real time.
Yeah, Google has a pretty impressive array of technologies. I mean, I can take a picture of known structures, and it'll come back with that feedback, right? So, I mean, download the Google app. And it's Google goggles, right? And this is one of their biggest implementations, is that it's just natural search. I want to know what the Eiffel Tower is. I click on it, CN Tower, and I think the recognition is for large, recognizable, like the Chrysler Tower and those kind of things. But what it extends into are things, the real implementation of Google goggles, which is facial recognition, and that's what you're talking about. Like, the processing capabilities have to be on the device and in the cloud to be able to point a picture at somebody and do a visual search through probably Google's image databases and identify, or even your own contact photos, and identify that person. And I think this is where it starts to get powerful with a slash of creepiness, right? Powerful because I can hold it up anywhere and it will know that what street I'm on, and what that building is in front of me, and it'll recognize the house and it'll tell me what's inside of that house. But it also, I mean, I look forward to the day where I can kind of hold up my camera and remember somebody's name, because I'm getting up there in age. As long as it's not my own kids that I have to remember their names. But that's really where it gets insanely powerful, and Google is leading the charge in this. And whether or not people accept it, we know that there's these kind of databases that are out there for facial recognition. And this, I think, the first step on this is something like, was it Vision On, their app lock, which is basically, we heard this it was supposed to be in the second version of the iPad, which is facial recognition in the front-facing camera that unlocks a specific configuration of your iPad. So when my kids hold it up, scans their face, and it only displays the games or the applications that I've deemed they can use. And I think that's the first step in this, where, right now we're a little bit leery about facial recognition, but a year from now we're going to be having this conversation like, well, yeah, it's natural. It's a natural part of my day, that it's my best fingerprint.
And it's where you see a technology from the desktop moving into mobile.
Yeah.
I have facial recognition on my desktop right now. I had to get on the phone with Dell Support Center for 2 weeks to try and get the CD delivered to me, because it wasn't included with my laptop. But I have software that Dell ships with laptops, so that instead of logging into Windows with a password, I can sit down in front of the camera and it'll log me into my account. And that way, every person that sits down in front of it can either be logged in as their own account or a guest account.
Yep.
And that's now, as you say, it's moving to mobile now. Mobile has the power to do that. Now they have front-facing cameras. Obviously, rear-facing cameras, a little bit annoying to hold it up, turn it around, and then turn it back. Oh, did it get me? It's front-facing cameras really impact that. And so the change now to have front and rear-facing cameras, and to have the power on these devices to do that processing, it's moving some of these technologies to mobile and bridging the privacy and the fear that some people have, and that on your desktop, people are comfortable with it being their desktop,
right,
and that they're used to having virus scanners and spyware scanners to try and protect their information. On mobile, they're used to being a very transient personal device, and they are worried that the information that a mobile device is going to access is going to be transmitted over the web, because typically the high power, new age applications on mobile devices leverage the web and network connections because they're doing too much for a mobile device to do all on their own. And so you find new things that initially are done over the web and now can maybe be done locally because devices have that extra power on them.
Well, and I think we're just at the beginning of people understanding this. I know companies like Sonic Smule start to leverage the camera in a different way for audio and audio purposes, and I think that's what people are doing. They're experimenting with this thing. How can we use this in a way that's innovative, that speeds things up, that actually helps people on the other end? I mean, so the killer app on the phones these days, those cameras.
Definitely, and it's moving more and more towards that. As you said before, voice was the killer app to get people to have phones. Email was the killer app to get people to upgrade to smartphones. Cameras are the killer app that's going to make smartphone usage really expand into daily lives outside of just communication.
Yeah, well, it's already worked with that. Well, and that was just the first story, and it's really interesting to see the evolution of this, because I think we'll come back on this episode 20, and we'll look back in 6 months or 9 months from now and see that transition that's happened, where camera has all of a sudden become in not just a camera. It's not just, you're not building it just for a camera. You're actually integrating it right into your daily lives outside of just taking photos. Cameras, not just for photos anymore. Going to take a break here and introduce you guys out there in the audience, to a service that I love, not just because they're sponsoring the show, but because it makes money for developers. This is something that is insane. We've seen some great stories about companies that have done 100 times their revenue using Pontiflex app leads versus something like AdMob or another advertising. Pontiflex does app leads as a sign-up ad. It's non-intrusive. It's part of your app. It doesn't take people out of your app and into a web browser. I interviewed a company called TuneMe, and their interview will be up on Teller.tv soon. And these guys overnight went from making no money on AdMob and making a ton of cash with app leads. And they didn't have to have the millions and millions and millions of users in order to start generating the high volume of revenue. It's a great way to start. It's a great way to generate income. It's a great way so that you can actually build additional versions of your product because you're making some money. And I think that this is something that we should be supporting. Everybody should be supporting. So go to appleads.com and download it, give it a try, and integrate it right into your app quickly. It's so easy. They got an open API, and then you can start advertising some of the biggest brands in your app right away and start making some money. That's very important. It's very important. So we thank AppLeads for sponsoring Two Guys on Mobile. All right, our next story is a company that doesn't need to make any money and an industry that's growing. And I think this is what, the only way I can describe this is audio recognition software gets its day, right? So South by Southwest was really clearly around group messaging and group chat on mobile. What we're seeing now is somebody like Shazam, who's been in the news for a long time. They were one of the original apps on the iPhone. Audio recognition software 3.5 or 4 years ago. Technology is good. It never works for me, though. I've never had them identify a song. They clearly don't have the library of Springsteen songs that I do. But they just raised $32 million, and I think this is the beginning of this phase where companies like SoundHound and a bunch of the other guys in this space are going to start to raise that kind of money, and Shazam is doing it in a way. I think that's an incredible amount of money for a company. We were discussing this before, making 15 grand a day in referral fees. So, but needless to say, this is something that's coming. And audio recognition software is powerful, especially from the device.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that as much as we talk about this whole mobile bubble in terms of the investments that are going on, and we look at lots of companies that have received investments, many we've covered here that just seem completely ridiculous to the potential we would see for revenue generating from them. Shazam is a little different. Shazam has been around for quite a while. They're not like a 1-year-old startup or a 2-year-old startup. They've been doing this for quite a while. They've been evolving their technology. As much as it doesn't work for your Bruce Springsteen recordings from when he was 13 years old in his basement that I'm sure you've got playing in your background all the time.
They don't recognize the bootlegs, no.
For most popular music, I have found it works fairly flawlessly. In the past, it was maybe a 70%, but I can't remember the last time I used it where it didn't identify the song I was listening to, and usually much quicker than its projected time. So it has a little like timer going around as it goes, and usually it's a lot quicker than what the maximum time could be. And so I can see it getting better, and I can see that it was a little ahead of its time. Originally, it was this cool toy for people to be able to find music that they were hearing. And so it's always a question. I'm sure the guy who started the company was like, a song on the radio, the guy didn't tell me who was playing it, and I want to figure out what it is, right? Yeah. So we build this technology around that use case. But as those use cases have evolved, and as that hasn't been maybe as primary use cases before, people have seen the benefits of this audio recognition technology, not just for songs now, but Shazam is working with media companies so that it can recognize more than just songs, but also TV shows and movies. And with far less time than the 10, 20, 30 seconds of audio that it sometimes needs for songs, but by putting basically audio fingerprints for the songs and for the videos into Shazam's database, it can do a much, much faster analysis of what you're actually watching, what you're actually listening to. And this is why I think Shazam actually has a business model that can go with a technology, which is working with media companies to provide benefits to customers of those media companies. So CBS is going, well, I want people to be able to pull up information about NCIS running live on TV. So instead of having them type in the Twitter account, which they show at the bottom of every episode now, and often actors are live on Twitter when the show is running live, tweeting with people, which is great. CBS and Fox actually has a tag for some of their shows shown at the bottom of the screen as well. Yep. This allows you to quickly jump into that conversation by saying, oh, I'm watching this show, load up the app, it recognizes what show you're watching, and can kick you into the experience, the fan experience for that show.
Yeah, or additional content, right? So behind-the-scenes cuts or webisodes or something like that really does tie into it. I'm mixed on this because there are simpler ways to do this, right? There are check-in technologies like Miso or Get Glue that allow you to say, listen, I'm watching NCIS, I stamp it, and then I can get pushed information, carry on a dialogue, get a deeper connection from a fan perspective. But then I flip between that, and I love what Disney did with Bambi, right? They did a remastered version of Bambi and an iPad app that when you and I don't know if it was powered by Shazam. Somebody out there, let us know if it was powered by Shazam. When I'm watching Bambi, I can at any point in the movie launch this application, and it'll recognize where it is at that movie. They did this with Dr. McDreamy show there as well, and it shows me behind the scenes or animation sequences and how they built that scene, and that is what I think is the death of the DVD, right? That portable media platform, because if I can get that from the cloud as I'm watching the movie, that's a much better way than actually giving me 19 hours of footage on a DVD. That's just my preference.
And that's exactly why, as you said in that example, why Shazam is a better use case than check-ins.
Yeah.
Because we've covered check-ins before and how simply checking in, it's a user action a user has to take. It's a barrier to entry for people, where just like using a camera as an integral part of your everyday life, having Shazam as kind of an integrated technology around what's going on means you don't have to make the decision to load up Get Glue and say, this is the show I'm watching. You just have to launch the app, and while you're watching TV, it'll switch you between contexts of what you're doing. Yeah. So participate in the show. When a commercial comes on, automatically have an ad come up in the application you're watching for the commercial that's on TV right now as co-advertising for that advertiser right there.
Or coupons.
Or coupons.
Or some kind of way to incite or instigate or create a relationship with a customer. And I think that's powerful. But you just dawned on me is that going back to our first story, which was the killer app is the camera. Ultimately, wouldn't you be able to just throw up your iPad and get an assessment of where you are on the TV show instead of audio? It's video tuned.
Ultimately, yes. However, audio processing is far less intensive than video processing is, and our eyes can see much more than our ears can hear. And so you can actually put audio cues, which is done right now, into TV shows that we can't hear. But it's harder to put visual cues in because the television is tuned to display stuff that we can see.
Yeah.
So it's hard to put visual stuff in that you can't see, but right now Nielsen ratings, for example, are all done by audio cues put into television shows that we don't hear, but the Nielsen box picks up. So the same thing with video signals is that you can do the processing on the video signals that way, but the power to process that video real time of a TV show and figure out that context is much more than just an audio signal.
Yeah, so we're getting subliminal messages. That's why at about 10:30 every night I go and hit the freezer for some ice cream. Right? Is it? You want the ice cream? This is an interesting play because there are some companies that are out here doing this, and obviously the integration, in my opinion, is going to lead to the end of DVDs. It's going to end to that stored media where you put a CD in, and it's the only way to get this kind of information. I can envision a point in time where I'm watching a movie with a device next to me, and my wife, and a device, right? Or my kids. We saw Cars 2. Wouldn't it be great if I could actually get, they have the bloopers. So there's a key here for bloopers where you can actually come back to that and watch the outtakes for that piece of the film and where it is in context, or alternate endings or something like that allows you to do these things. All audio cued. One of the big challenges that they're going to face here is around advertising cues. They really do have to accelerate this, and it has to be the same experience whether it's a live show at 10 o'clock on a Monday night or a rerun at 11 o'clock the next morning, or on demand, right? So you can use a bunch of input mechanisms, at least, certainly Shazam can do it, time of day, locale, and what should be on TV based on a TV guide, right, a schedule. But then you have to make sure that you ensure that kind of connectivity right around if it's not on a live point in time. But you know what? It's I like this for live events as well. Baseball games, football games, award shows.
Absolutely, and it's this kind of a mobile to entertainment integration. Not to try and pitch myself as we're going here, but I'm trying to talk, and I am talking with television show producers and trying to talk with networks to try and explain and buy into what television watching will be 10 years from now. Yeah. Not what it is 2 years from now. Don't be like the music industry that dragged its heels for a decade and a half or longer into this digital space. Get out ahead of it. And just like we've talked about how companies like Twitter didn't really have a business plan when they started, and now are weaving their way around trying to figure out the best way to maximize the monetization of the users. Right now, you can have a plan, and we tell people don't give stuff away for free unless you have a plan to monetize it. And this is a case of television shows and entertainment. Give away the free apps to get people engaged, but have the plan that while you may not get all your advertisers on board on day one, you'll get your television producers on board day one. And as people are using the apps, then you sell your advertisers the fact that, you know what, all you have to do is add this to it and you can get extra value, because the people who fast forward through those commercials, they'll still get the commercials on their mobile device, or they'll get ads or coupons or whatever there in a way that is acceptable to users, because you don't want to take over the whole screen. That's where people are fast forwarding through ads. And every time you try and get around what customers want, they will find solutions to get around that and demand it. That was the PVR. It was the recognition that people are going to download or whatever these shows anyways. They're going to record these TV shows on VCR tapes and things like that and fast forward anyways. So let's make some money off that. Mm-hmm. But now people are fast forwarding through all the commercials that are there, and you're not making money as much off those anyways because your visibility for your commercial is lower. So how can you swing that balance back towards doing something customers are going to be engaged with, which is their mobile device while they're doing, whether watching live shows or recorded shows, and get in front of those customers again? Eventually, you'll swing the pendulum again, and that those apps will evolve to open up to try and get more access to advertisers, to get in front of more people, and that will evolve some applications which reduce the visibility of ads, and we'll find a new way. And it's always a balancing act, but right now, the pendulum is really, really swinging to people not seeing commercials and not being engaged in the show they're watching because they're doing something else. And it's a great opportunity to leverage mobile for that right now and get out ahead of the next 10 years of entertainment.
I would agree. I mean, there is what Shazam has talked about is that they have a 10% conversion rate when it comes to their audio music identification service. So that means that when for every 10 songs that somebody identifies, somebody buys one song, and they said
that's crazy, by the way. Like that's
a high rate,
ridiculous conversion rate.
It is, and they're saying the same thing about the trials that they did with Shazam for television, and the audio cues here is that it's a 10% conversion rate. Whatever, it's a 10% action rate. I think is the better way to portray this. Is that whatever's going on the screen, it's a 10% action rate for the user who's engaged in that. And that's a very high rate of return. It is. And I think it can accelerate if they do one thing. And I think that what they need to be able to do, what Shazam should be doing, is looking at an open API, distributing this for much more value for the advertiser. So if they're working with ABC or CBS or any of the big brands, what they should be doing is getting their app or that functionality into everybody's app so that they can leverage that as a deeper stream and basically take percentages off everybody. This is something that if they have the relationships at the top end, we talked about this. So SoundHound is my favorite, is my tool of choice. But if SoundHound had the Shazam API into it, then I can actually build, I can still use that and gain the benefit. Shazam can gain the benefit as well. Whoever's first here is going to own that relationship, and it's going to be pretty impressive.
As we talked about before, you have to be careful not to get yourself in an Instagram situation.
Right.
Where lots of people are using it, but they're not making. But somebody else built an app that makes money on top of Instagram.
But if
I agree. I think Shazam needs to be careful to get some solid relationships in place and get a solid revenue stream before they open it up and expose themselves to 100 other people making more money than they are on top of their tech.
But if you think about it, is that if and what I'm saying is Shazam be the gatekeeper to that relationship from CBS and just license that out to people to be able to put into their app so that CBS gets the benefit as well. So if I'm an advertiser and I want the most exposure as possible. So a 10% conversion rate for Shazam is great. They own that relationship. But what if every other app has a 10% conversion rate as well? And it just broadens that base of apps being used to identify my ad or my television show or engage with my customers. Pretty excited about this.
Say, when they say 10% conversion rate, which is 5 to 10 times higher than typical advertising conversion rates on mobile and digital, that really their goal in the future is actually to lower that conversion rate. Because to me, that 10% conversion rate means that there's 5 times as many people that should be using their application that aren't using their application right now because they don't know about it or they don't know the usefulness of it. It's great to have a high conversion rate, and you don't want to stream. You don't want to go. Your goal to be a 1% conversion rate. But what that probably means is if you went 10 times the number of users, maybe your conversion rate could still go down to 3%, but net you're making actually more money, and you're getting into the technology in there. And that's, as you say, as you build a platform out for other people to integrate, what you do is you piggyback on their marketing and their exposure to make your user base go up way, way higher. So even if your conversion rate is going down, the number of users is going way up.
Yeah, and I like that because then I like a high conversion rate, but what I love about a good platform is that any incremental conversion rate increase means lots of, as they say, boku bucks in the pocket, right? So a 1% conversion rate increase is an incredible amount of money. So, and this comes back to that whole thing, is that what audio recognition software is doing is actually closing that huge chasm, that rift between my couch and my TV. I keep saying this. It's such a small distance. It's right. I'm sitting. It's like 8 feet, right? And I can touch my TV, but there is a huge, deep chasm. It's the biggest crevice that advertisers and television producers are facing right now. Is that how do I engage that person sitting passively on the couch? And this is one of the ways. So we're going to see this. We're going to see this much more of this. Whatever Shazam is doing, there's going to be other companies that are going to come out, and including the major brands that are going to come out on their own, like Disney did, and create the technology that bridges those gaps, because it's too valuable to lose. It's like it's a $80 billion industry, the advertising television industry. So we're going to see much more of this coming soon.
Let me ask you a quick prediction question to end off the segment. When do you think you'll see the first TV show that's actually going to be a mobile app where the TV show is the companion to the mobile app?
Oh, nice. It's like a Running Man, right? Episode. Well, I mean, I think we're... Oh, that's a great question. I don't see it in the next 12 months, but I definitely see things like there's going to be a transition period, right? And we're going to see this over the next 12 months, and we've already seen it. Like Heroes did this very well. They had a Sprint-sponsored webisode, addendum to Heroes, where they followed some character development that didn't make it into the actual show. They built out that plot, and I think that you're going to see a lot of that. Is that your 1 hour experience on the television show per week is now going to extend well beyond that 1 hour because of additional footage that were cut. Shows like Big Brother have been doing this for 5 or 7 or 8 years, maybe 10 years now, where they're broadcasting a select amount edited on television, but they're broadcasting the whole thing available online and on demand through your mobile device now as well. So I think that there's a transition that's going to happen there, and that's going to happen over the next 12 to 18 months. If they're not doing this, they're going to suffer. I think that you're going to start to see this with like Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, that kind of stuff. And I don't doubt that Jeopardy will be the first show that does hey, it's Alex Trebek and people that are virtual people or teams that are doing this using their mobile device real time, like on a television show. I think that that's what we're going to see soon.
The best example I've seen was almost there, which was the 1 versus 100 game that was on Xbox, which was a television show converted to a game show that was done live over your Xbox. So you were participating with live people, and there was a live host on it. And it wasn't a TV show that was running as a sidebar. It was a game on an Xbox, but the difference was it was cartoon people online.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that game shows are a prime target for that. And the other one I think that is a target for it is specialty channels like the Food Network or HGTV, where the cost of a half-hour program, like the cost of the revenue that they make on that program, isn't so high as it is on something like ABC or CBS, where Jeopardy runs, right? So those major market TV shows, their half hour is worth a lot of advertising, where something like HGTV is a specialty channel where you could probably make the case that you'd say, I can make the same amount of money by selling mobile products as you're making advertising in this TV show. So it's a great use case to use for building an app in which what you're doing on TV is companion to the application itself.
I agree. Well, this is that next frontier. I mean, we talk about this quite often. Mobile does not just encompass the devices we carry, the iPads, the iPhones, the Android devices, the BlackBerries. Mobile is your television set and the future of how that interacts with you. Mobile is your car. Mobile is all this stuff that allows you to take whatever it is that you want with you and use it and view it and watch it and do whatever you need to do, interact with it wherever you are. And I think this is just the beginning of stuff. And it's so exciting, man. It's so exciting.
My prediction, by the way, is 36 months because it takes a while to build a TV show up to go. But within 12 to 18 months, people want to start doing it. And then it takes 12 to 18 months to get a show on the air.
Well, I think we should attach electrodes to our seats. And we'll just do that first one, right? It's like if we're off topic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people would be zapping us. We'd be dead. We'd be dead this whole show. So, audio recognition software having its day. It's paving the way. I still think $32 million. You take it if you can. It's a lot of money to do this. It's a crazy amount of money. But, I keep saying that it's crazy. But take it if you can. The terms are there. Take it if you can. You never know when you're going to get another round. Our third story, it's a little bit shorter, is what we've kind of labeled NFC everywhere. So I think a while back we talked about not us, but there was a savior, an inventory management system that was they're going to extend far beyond this. That was going to be the savior of lost equipment, food chain analysis, and it never materialized, right? So we've talked about this kind of technology before, where it's where little microchips attached as dots to equipment, and I think Walmart was the only company that actually built this out. I'll verify that. But
RFID is what you're talking about, right?
RFID is exactly it, and it was supposed to be the savior for everything. It was like you'll walk into your house, and an RFID tag will know who you are and display the right TV and the right ads and blah 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 blah. And that never materialized. So along comes NFC, and we all agree that kind of QR codes and a lot of the stuff that's coming out right now is transient in nature. I mean, this stuff will come and go when something that's a lot easier to use. But NFC now, they're talking about, it's started off as payments and transactions, and now it's going beyond that. It's everything. This is a big deal to some people, but not to you, Jeff.
Well, I mean, I think that NFC is really interesting, and I think it could, bridge some of those gaps as to what RFID might have been, or what people predicted RFID was. But I every time I hear about NFC for more than basic use cases, I always think, well, every device I carry has a Bluetooth chip in it already, and aside from the fact you have to pair Bluetooth devices, which is the dumbest way to use a wireless connection, and it's only there to have some semblance of security within it. But NFC doesn't have any pairing on it, So if you're not worried about NFC being secure, on the Bluetooth side, it's a wider, longer range technology that's already in all the devices. So I'm not sure why we would put NFC chips in everything so that you have to walk within 5 feet of your TV or in 3 feet of your TV when you already have a Bluetooth chip that it could detect that you're close to your TV as well and just not transmit information that's insecure. Just like NFC shouldn't do it either over an open connection. Why not just leverage the Bluetooth chips that are already there? I never quite understand what the benefit of NFC brings over Bluetooth from a straight wireless technology, not from a protocol standpoint of pairing up devices.
Well, you know, a lot of companies are like that. They're trying to figure it out. We don't know because there's only a handful of devices out there right now that are actually NFC capable. And I know that RIM is launching every device that they have with NFC, and Android or Google Nexus S is in the States and now up in Canada. You know, the company that won TechCrunch Disrupt a couple of weeks ago in New York City was a company called GetAround, with ties to Ottawa. Sam Zaid, who is the CEO of that, is an Ottawa resident and moved to San Francisco to actually get funded, and funded they got, which is a sad story because we lost a guy like Sam. But his technology is not NFC, it's not Bluetooth, it's Wi-Fi. It's a mini Wi-Fi hub. So GetAround is a really cool technology that allows you to rent your car. It's like the Airbnb for automobiles. So for 22 hours a day, your car sits in your laneway. You might as well make some money off of it and rent it by the hour. And they have a little box that plugs into your lighter outlet, or is built right in, and it allows you to, you know, somebody can walk up with their iPhone, rent your car ultimately, get approved, pay for it, and then use the iPhone to open the door, start the car, you know, and go. Pretty cool. Not done by NFC, right? So it's all done through a little Wi-Fi hub, and to me that. You know, there are innovative ways to use this technology aside from NFC, but this is a steamroll coming. I mean, we're about to get hit by this.
Well, I mean, is it a steamroll? It's moving into BlackBerries. Apple hasn't confirmed whether they're going to put it in the iPhone 5 or not. It's going into some Android handsets, but because the Android handsets are made by 30 different people, it's not necessarily going to go into every Android handset that's out there. And it's not like day one of NFC sales, suddenly everybody has NFC. It's going to take 18 to 24 months minimum, and I think device durations are getting much longer than they used to be now. So I'm going to say it's going to take 24 to 30 months before, you know, the penetration of NFC on mobile devices that are live in the market reaches a saturation point enough to say, okay, yeah, 75% of my customers have NFC, so I should put it on, because it's not worth doing it if 25% or 30% or 40% of your customers have it. You need a pretty large share to make the investment in a major NFC rollout for your company. Now, companies like Starbucks, who like to do some leading edge stuff, don't necessarily need that high of a penetration. Companies like Walmart maybe don't if they want to do the rollout. But from a mass market standpoint, the penetration of the technology needs to be high enough to make it worth the investment in the infrastructure for NFC on every retail outlet that's out there. You know, those terminals that retailers have, they just bought all new ones to support chip cards. And those are not like $100 terminals. Those are expensive terminals.
You're right. I mean, the investment side of it is big, but here in Canada, I mean, we had the swipe pass in a lot of gas stations and Tim Hortons now and Starbucks. They're leveraging that kind of technology right now, which is the existing technology. And whether or not it happens, I mean, NFC is we all agree that it's far deeper than just transactions. It can be a way to transmit information. It can be a way to do a lot of things. And ultimately, they're talking about, we talked about this on an episode, like printable NFC chips, right? So that posters will create action, or you know, printed paper will create action, and that's what we're going to start to see with NFC. But you're right, 30 months to that, we're probably talking a little bit longer. I mean, we're probably talking 24 to 36 months for integration in your payment system and an understanding and an acceptance. And then beyond that for cheaper and more innovative uses of NFC in advertising and print.
Well, it's like, I mean, any technology takes some adoption time, and I think the NFC is going to be no different.
Yep.
And the difference that we see now, I think, is that certain technology has high adoption curves when you see an entire industry buy into a technology and have a desire to move forward. HD TVs are a great example. the time it took to switch over from SD to HD, like not from the day one, but from when it started really getting going to when basically all you buy is HD TVs now, like that's actually really, really fast compared to what normal technology evolution actually takes. So that's a case of everybody along the value chain buying into it. And NFC could do the same thing if everybody along the value chain sees that there's value to them in NFC.
Yep.
And if people can pitch for retailers, for payment processors, for consumers, that there's some specific, identifiable, obvious value that's not just saving 3 cents on a transaction, then I think NFC could do that as well. But HDTV provided a tangible, visible, you didn't have to sell to people. Here, look at it, they could see it. NFC, if it's saving you a couple bucks, but you have to spend $100 on a phone, that's not going to do it.
I know, and you know, that transition, I mean, it's going to happen. You know, some guys are going to get it quickly, some guys aren't going to, but the HD, you know, from inception, from where we are with NFC, which is nowhere, to where we will be, which is maybe pervasive. Who knows where this is going? I think it's gonna probably be faster than HD TV from the time where the concept was floated to the time that everybody had one in their house. But certainly that adoption cycle is lower. And what's going to be next? So what is going to happen after NFC in order to be able to make this even easier? And I think that's going to happen midway through the NFC rollout. Right? It's innovation. That's what happens. People are working on it right now. And it's going to be biometric based, and it's going to be embedded chips in your finger that's going to eliminate the need for any kind of identification and credit card, and you just, basically it's going to be called the Midas touch, and you swipe with your finger. Right?
The fear I have is just that I already have 3 buttons to turn off wireless technologies on my phone. The cellular connection, the Wi-Fi connection, and the Bluetooth connection.
Yep.
And adding a 4th one on there, even 3 is too many. Adding a 4th one on, I think what you're going to end up with is, well, NFC may be a good technology for people, the average consumer, if they have to choose between all wireless on, which is battery draining every time you add a chip, no matter how low power it is, and all wireless off, which is an easy, quick choice to make. If you have to manage them individually, it's too complicated for people. It's either my phone's on or my phone's off. But if your phone's on and it's got 4 different types of wireless signals all streaming up from it, besides people's fears of, well, is this one going to cause me cancer? Or is this one going to cause me cancer? And the
answer is yes.
The battery life and the data usage, just all those kind of things when you add different stuff, like it's getting too complicated, and I think that we're over-engineering ourselves into saying, well, couldn't we just use something that already exists right now versus having to invent something new?
Well, here's a tie-in to the sound, the sound audio recognition and Shazam, is that I would take this as a service. Is that my TV guide on my television box is terrible. It's terrible, and this is directly right at you, Rogers. You suck, right? Your usability is terrible. Your interface is archaic. Everything about it is terrible, and on-demand doesn't work. So put an NFC-capable chip in that. Give me one on my device and allow me to operate it from my iPad or my iPhone right away, right from there. Let me buy my movies from there. Let me buy my audio. Let me pay my bill. Let me do all that stuff right from the box. You've got it in my house, unfortunately, because you suck. But if you add this augmented layer, this NFC, point-to-point, me to that allows me to pay and order and do all those kind of things from my box, all of a sudden, I can see NFC in the home being very valuable. Then it becomes my point of contact for paying for everything and connecting with everything and seeing what's on and recording my shows. That valuable. Also, closing out my with the shows that are the channels I don't want my kids to watch.
But you don't need NFC for that.
Well,
you already have a box in your house right now that has an Ethernet card in it, because that's how the signal is getting to your house.
Yep.
And the new Rogers boxes from I forget who makes them, whether it's Scientific Atlanta or which is Cisco now or Motorola, they'll stream over your cable within your house the shows that are on your box using an Ethernet connection.
Yep.
Okay, you have an IP address.
Yep.
Just throw a Wi-Fi chip in there, which is already cheap, and you can do the exact same thing today with your existing phone. No need for a new phone. So why put NFC in there and say, well, you can do this if you buy a new phone? Put it in there and say, you can do it today, download this application.
Well, there's
I don't get it.
And so do it. I mean, that's the key thing, is that whatever it takes to be able to innovate. A lot of people look at these iterations of technology and say, like I just did, wouldn't it be cool if you could? And there's a solution out there right now. So, maybe the best thing that NFC brings, Jeff, is the fact that people are starting to think about how they can use it, and then looking backwards from there to see, hey, you know, oh, we can do this stuff with existing technology. Bluetooth, NFC, Wi-Fi. Man, I mean, if Get Around can win something like TechCrunch Disrupt and disrupt the car systems without NFC, and I've already been paying with a credit card, and Card.io can now allow me to take a picture of my credit card and to transmit that or fill out forms with that. Not transmit, but fill out forms. Maybe, as you said, we're just inventing for the sake of inventing. And let's innovate with what we've got.
100% agree.
Okay. 3 stories nailed by 2 guys on mobile. How does that even sound? So oh, man.
I'm not going there.
Yes, I can see they got the visual branding for the show in my head. That's it. I got nothing left. 3 things that we covered to death. We did it in less than an hour, which was our goal. Jeff, where can people find you?
You can get Twitter @theswabhog. Make sure you put the A and the U in the right order. Most people spell swab wrong. Or just go to bacononthego.com, which is a lot easier to spell. And you can get my blog there. You can get download this podcast there. And you can link over to my Twitter account from there as well. So you don't have to worry about how you're spelling it.
Wow. And we will be here next week for episode number 21, Legal in America. That's what it is. We're going to call it the Legal in America one. We're going to come up with something interesting to do. Probably not. We'll just drink on a Sunday morning instead of we'll drink alcohol instead of coffee. Episode 21 coming up next week. I want to thank you guys who are still listening and watching, and the feedback that we've had from you guys has been great. I love the conversations that have been struck up on LinkedIn, for example. Lots of feedback on there. And I really appreciate you guys doing it. More of that, please. If there's something you want us to cover in depth, let us know. If it's too long for an episode of 2 guys, we'll just sit and talk about it. And we'll send you a version of it. Let us know the questions that you have. We'll answer them here. Right here on 2 Guys on Mobile. And every week we do this in and out just for your pure enjoyment. That's about it, right?
That's it. That's good.
I want to thank appleads.com for sponsoring this episode. And I am Rob Woodbridge from untether.tv or robwoodbridge.com. Whatever you choose, you are able to find me. Just search for me on Google and you will find me. Or actually, you're probably sitting here right now watching this at my site. I want to also remind you that you should subscribe to this on iTunes. We have a link somewhere around here, wherever this is. Go subscribe on iTunes. I typically get these up a little bit earlier on iTunes than I do publish them on the websites. And Jeff publishes it on Bacon on the Go. So if you really want up-to-date information, probably about 12 hours before we push it out, subscribe on iTunes.com or iTunes service. There's an audio and a video stream. Go and do that. Just go and do it. We really appreciate it. And if you could give us a little, like a star rating that's like 4 or greater, that'd be even better. Right?
Even 3 or greater. You know what? Even 3 or greater will work for me. But
whatever. Just give us some good feedback. We really appreciate you guys watching and listening. Thank you so much. Jeff, man, have a great week.
All right.
See you next one.